Hey guys, I am back for Lighthouse. Now here is what we are going to do first. I actually laid out some of that sheer transfer paper onto the 16 by 20 inch canvas and just kind of started sketching. So I don't have a firm tracer for you yet, but by the end of the video I will. I just kind of wanted to sketch it out and get a feel for how I wanted where I wanted the lighthouse to be, what I wanted as far as land mass and water, where I wanted don't tear it up, where I wanted my windows to fall, and I kind of decided to put them off center. I'd kind of put them here and then moved them over, but I wanted to sketch it out first so that I could decide on a background. Okay, so for this particular piece, I'd kind of like it to have a bit of a cloudy, gray sky type background. I don't want it to be super like sunshiny day with pretty blue floating clouds, but I didn't want it to be super stormy either. So if you want, we're going to use three colors. I'm going to use our Anita's Whites, our Folk Art Dolphin, which is the blue, and then a little bit of gray. This is the Granite Gray from Apple Barrel. That's a Walmart brand. And you know what's funny is I haven't bought paint at Walmart in 100 years. So this is really old. I don't even know. Okay, look, it says 1988, 2014. So somewhere between 1988 and 2014 I bought this. Anyway, I digress. So if you want a more blue sky, then you do that. If you want a more cloudy sky, use more gray. Maybe no blue and then just the white and the gray. I'm going to kind of get a happy medium, but I really wanted to see where it was going to lay out. So I know my land mass is going to hit about here, and we'll finalize that when it's time, but I want to just kind of mark where my sky is going to end. So we're going to have our lighthouse, and then this will be like a rocky ridge that the lighthouse is on. And then we'll have a little bit of water. And this is all going to be sky. So I made a little mark, and I'll probably may do a strip of tape just to keep myself level, measure up, because you don't want your land, the horizon is always level. No matter what you're painting, your horizon is always level. So I want to make sure that's level. And then we're going to put a little bit of a smoky, overcast sky in. And we'll talk as I'm going about how to make it more sunny if that's what you want, or more cloudy if that's what you want. So let me grab something to measure and make sure. I got my measuring tape, and I want to make sure my horizon's the same on each side, and then we'll run a line of tape. So we're right at 5 inches here. Actually, it's 4.5 inches because I'm crazy. So we'll make sure we're 4.5 inches over here. So I'm just made a little team so that we have a proper horizon. So now I will take some blue tape. And I'm just going to mask that off so that I ensure that I have a nice straight horizon for this side where the water is going to meet. So I'm going to tape off below my line. Below. And if you think you can paint a straight line, just don't use the tape. I don't trust myself that much. I'm pretty good at keeping things level, and it doesn't have to be perfect. If you get some seepage, don't worry about it, because we're going to come back with water here and some land, but we just want to make sure that our horizon is straight. So I'm going to lay this back out real quick. So this was going to be my horizon line. So here's where our water will be, so we want that to be nice and straight. This is where we're going to have a landmass. We're going to put some stones and rocks here, and then our Dadgummit, I need to tape that up, don't I? Then our lighthouse will be over here to the side. So let's go ahead and get started with some sky. And the first thing I'm going to do is just mist the canvas, because this one is kind of rough and porousy. This is a Dick Blick canvas. It's a 16 by 20, 1.5 inch gallery wrapped canvas. But it seems a little rougher than normal to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just lightly mist. Not too much. And if you don't have like a mister, you don't want it to be wet. You just want to dampen it a little bit if it's a little rough. And if you don't have a mister, just dip your paintbrush into a little water and just scrub it on. Just don't want any of the paint being really grabby at this point. So I'm going to first add whites. White's my go-to. So I'm just going to squirt a little white and use my little 2-inch chip brush to just move that around. I'm getting some shadow. Just want to cover, you know, I'm not trying to cover every square inch. I just want to cover, you know, a good portion of it, because we're going to blend in a little bit of blue, peeking out here and there, and then some gray, and we'll manipulate it a little bit to give it kind of a cloudy look. So I'm going to leave that there because we'll reuse it. So the next one I'm going to use is the Folk Art Dolphin, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of put in a few spots. I'm not too concerned about here, but I'm just going to lay a little squirt there, maybe a little squirt there. I'm going to use my same old dirty brush. It's got white all over it. And I'm just going to come in. And you see what I'm doing? I'm using my brush flat on its side. Okay, I'm not holding it upright like you would be painting. I'm laying it just about like I was laying it on the canvas. Just raise it up enough that you can get your fingers under there. And I'm just kind of scrubbing around. Now normally when you're doing a sky, you kind of want to start with blue, because the sky is blue. If there are no clouds in it, the sky's going to be blue, and then you would add in your white for clouds. So we're kind of working a little backwards. That's okay. Let's get some over here. Can't forget there's sky on this side of the lighthouse too. So I'm really being very abstract. Got some hairs in my brush. Very abstract with my sky. Okay, and it don't matter. It doesn't have to be linear. Like I've made it really linear. So you can come in and just give it, just scrub out some of those lines. And I'm just kind of patting and scrubbing with the end of my paintbrush. So now I'm going to add in a little bit of gray. Very abstract. How you like my method of application there? And I'm going to use that same dirty brush, and I'm going to do kind of the same thing. Just going to add in a little bit of gray. So you're going to have some white showing through a little, and we're probably going to add a little bit of white on top for like some clouds, maybe with a little bit of the gray mixed in. So you're going to still see a little bit of that blue sky showing through. So it's just kind of an overcast day. Let's just kind of pat with our brush. So on an overcast day, you might still be able to see a little bit of sky. Just something abstract. We don't want to make it too difficult. We're not trying to be... My brain totally went blank on some famous artist. Da Vinci. We're not trying to be, you know, too terribly... Okay, I'm going to add in some white, and I really am not 100% sure where I want my white to be, so I am going to grab a plate. And this is a dirty plate, I know some of you hate that, but that's okay. We're just going to, this is all dried up. I'm just going to throw a little bit of white on here. I like to use my plates until they're so grungy that you can't use them anymore, so Normally try not to do those in a video. So I have gopped on just a really nice bit of white on that brush now. So I'm just going to come back in and do the same thing. I'm just laying in, and I don't know if you can see that really well or not, but just a little bit of a white cloud. So I'm just wiggling. I'm just lay your brush down and kind of wiggle on top of the surface. Try not to make any straight lines, because clouds rarely have a straight line. And that is my lighthouse. I guess let me add a little back here. You can even take, if you have one of those sea sponges, you can even take like a little sea sponge and dabble on. I don't know where dabble came from. Dab. So just making some clouds, and try to have them blend in a little bit together or fade into the sky. You don't want a cloud and a cloud and a cloud and a cloud. You want them to be very organic looking and not like, I'll kind of show you an example of what you don't want. You don't want there to be a cloud and then a cloud and then a cloud. You want them to kind of all blend in, fade out of each other. Let's see. I'm so tempted to do a little, you know how much I love that little rain effect where it's like raining, but we won't do that. It'll muddle up our lighthouse beam that we're going to put. So this is kind of it. That's how we're going to finish this. So if you want a more crisp or more sunny sky, eliminate the gray. Put a little bit of white down on your canvas. Then give your canvas, about 85% blue, and then come back in like I did with just a few more clouds. Just don't use the gray. And if you want a more gray look, a more stormy look, you might want to use a little bit of a darker gray and don't use the blue. Okay, so just use the darker gray and one shade darker. Maybe this. This is one of my favorites. This is a slate gray, so it's a little bit darker. So maybe use that instead of the granite gray, and this, just don't do the blue. That would be just for a little bit of a more stormy sky look. So we are going to let this dry. Then we're going to come down here, and I'm just going to do the water real quick after this is dry. I want it to dry so I can move my tape up because I want a nice horizon. I'm going to go ahead and pull this. So we have a really nice line, and I'll reuse that. So when this is dry, we'll come back. I'll tape the top portion, and then we'll do the water. And we'll probably brown in the stone, the area here, the beachy stone where the lighthouse is going to sit. And then we'll start worrying about our tracer and how that's going to pan out. So we'll let this dry, and when this is dry, we'll come back and do our next step. So I'll see you then. Guys, we are back. Our sky is nice and dry, so I am going to put my tape back on. And what I'm going to do is just put it right above the white, but I'm going to make sure just a tiny smidge of that upper portion of sky is showing. Not much, just kind of a little pinpoint line, just so I can see just a little bitty bit of that blue. That way when we're done with the water, we don't pull that tape and then there's this fine tiny little white line where we didn't quite get the tape in the right place. So always make sure you can see, once you have it taped off, that you can see just a little bitty bit of that portion that we already painted. So now we know there's not going to be a white line. Okay, so we're going to start on the water first, and I want to put this template back on just for a second so I can eyeball and see kind of what's going to happen here. So we are going, let's see, our horizon right there, because I have a line there. So this is about where it's going to be. So I'll kind of match that up. And I want to take a pencil that I don't have handy. Let's see. Oh, here it is. So I'm going to take a pencil, and I can see here where I want to make sure that that I have the rock enough to where the lighthouse has a place to sit. So I know that I want my water to start about right there. So we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a cliff ledge. So I'm going to just kind of stick my pencil under here real quick. I know that's where I want it to be. That gives me plenty of land. So then I'm going to just kind of make myself a little bit of a pencil line so that I know my water needs to be here and my rock needs to be here. I need to have, and it's going to come up after we get this horizon line done with the water. We'll pull that tape, and our rock base will actually go up a little into this area. But let's get our water done, and then we'll let that dry. And I think we're going to start with the Deco Art Americana Deep Midnight Blue. I love this for water. It's really dark. It's almost a dark navy. And I like it to be like in the furthest point because the water always looks darkest the further it is away. And then I'm going to blend in a little bit of the Folk Art Windsor Blue a little closer to the surface. And probably we'll add a smidgy of white as it gets closer here. Now we're not going to do all the detail work on the water yet. We're going to just be base coating in this step. So we're going to be, the sky's done. We're going to do the water, just kind of our background. Then we're going to do our rocks, and then we'll come back in and add more detail to the water once we kind of get everything in place where we want it to be. So I'm using a 3/4 inch flat, so it's just a large flat paintbrush. Get that wet. Get a paper towel. Offload some of that water, and then I'm going to put that blue right there on that horizon. I want to make sure that my tape is burnished down really good because I want to try to avoid any seepage. So I'm going to get this midnight blue on my brush, and then I'm not going to brush into it. I'm going to brush kind of down. If you brush that way and the paint, if you go this way and the paint or the tape is not stuck down really well, then you will get some bleed. And it's no big deal if we do. We can straighten that out, of course. It just makes more work, so I really kind of want to kind of not have to do that. Let's go straight across. Just don't go up into your tape. Okay, so, and I'm not going to worry too much about the perfect line of my rock because we'll come back and build that in. I just want to get some of this blue on for our water. We'll do that dark layer, about an inch worth. And then we're going to add in the, what was that? The Windsor blue, which is a brighter blue, and and I'm using the same brush, and I'm kind of blending in to the wet, kind of modeling the colors together. I'm going to get a little teeny bit of white on my brush too, just to kind of give that some interest. Use a little more the dark. So I'm just alternating between colors. Get it all on a little more dark. And I think our rock is going to come pretty close to the bottom, so we'll just do this. We'll build our rock around the water. Add in some of that Windsor. Then we're going to come in with some white. So I'm basically just blending these three colors together to give some interest. You don't want it to be one solid color of blue. Got to turn that light, the glare. Okay, so now I'm holding my brush flat to my surface. You see how I'm doing that? Kind of like it's laying down. So I'm taking that white that's on my brush and I'm just going to go back and forth and add what looks like some wave action. Just some water movement. And I'm fairly happy with that. So I think what we'll do, since we've gone into here a little bit, I'm going to get a teeny smidge of white just on the very tip and just kind of add, I'm just touching my brush to that blue and a little bit of a line. I'll take a really good picture of that and give it a little bit of a wave. This will also help us not have to do too much to it when we come back to fine tune. It will be pretty good. We're just going to add some detail to where it meets the rock. So I'm just going to come in with a little bit of white, just dab, touch, 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 kind of like white caps. We're just giving them a little white cap. Here and there. That was a little much. I'll take some of that out. So, okay, so we're gonna let that dry. So that was the Deep Midnight, the Windsor, and the white. Anita's white. So we're gonna let that dry, and as soon as it dries up, just enough that we're not gonna be blending black into the blue and vice versa, we're gonna I'm gonna go ahead and peel this off. That's a fairly nice line. Not too much seepage, not even enough to worry about, because we're gonna do resin and glass there. I might clean that up just a smidge right here. Let me see if I can do it with my fingernail. I sure did. This is why sometimes it's important to go ahead and pull that tape while it's wet, because if you have just a tiny smidge of a mess, you can just take your fingernail or even just a clean brush and just clean up that line a little if you have a little bit of seepage. All right, and if you have a lot, then just come back, let it dry, come back with some of the sky color and just clean that line up a little bit. So we're gonna let this dry, and when we come back, we're gonna do our rock formation. We're gonna use some blacks and browns and grays and do kind of a rock formation, but then we are gonna add some actual rocks, some of these pebble kind of rocks here to give that some depth as well. So we're not gonna worry too much about that. We're not gonna like make it look totally like rocks. We're just gonna give it a background. So once this is dry, we'll come back, do that. I'll see you then. Okay guys, our water is dry, so we're going to add in just some black and brown to our rocky area. I think, let's see, I have black, Americana Lamp Black, and Folk Art Raw Umber. And I know that, and you'll get this template, I'm not done with it yet. I'm not 100% sure how it's going to pan out, so I don't want to make it dark and black yet. But I want my rock, the lighthouse. I'm having a hard time with words today. It's going to come up here, and the lighthouse is going to sit on this rock cliff. So we're going to bring it up above the sea line, and then back down against this water. And we're just gonna do a really basic base coat of that. So I'm going to put a little bit of black. I've got my white still from the blue. I'm going to add a little bit of black and a little bit of raw umber to my little platey plate. And let's see what I do with my water and my paper towel. So let me make sure you can see that. So we're going to do this part. So we are just going to, I'm going to use this filbert. This is a filbert brush. It's a 3/4 inch. And a filbert means that it's rounded on the edges. And it's really good for more curvy kind of stuff. I do love my filbert. So I'm going to wet that and offload it just a little. And I'm going to just come in and start adding some black, I think. I'm just going to go into my black. I'm going to put this here so you can kind of see. I know that's dangerous. I might drip, but we'll take that chance. So I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to kind of add. I need kind of a solid, I need a solid base. Actually, I'm trying to decide how I want my lighthouse to lay out. But I think it'll go behind this rock a little bit. It'll kind of be tucked behind it. So we're looking at it from a distance, and then the rock is coming up higher than the lighthouse itself. So I think we're going to not worry about that too much. So we'll just fill that in a little. So I'm going to come down, and I'm just going to make a kind of a jagged line. Nothing straight, just kind of jaggedy. You can kind of twist your brush if you want, just so you don't have a perfect line, because rocks don't form perfectly. We're going to add a little bit of brown into that too, maybe a little white, I don't know. We're not going to mess with it too much because it's going to have a little bit of a we're going to put some rocks and some glass and maybe a little bit of fun stuff on top of it. So we're not going to worry about it too terrible much. We just get some black. Just fill in. I'm going to go into my brown a little, just so it's not one solid color. Now I'm not taking my color over the edge. That is a personal choice. You can do yours if you want to take the rock color over the edge. I hardly ever do that unless I'm doing something really abstract and it just wants to hang over the edge. I like my edges to be, you know, clean. I don't know. It's just a personal preference. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. And, you know, in the end, I may come back and do it. Who knows what I might do. So it's totally a personal preference. If you want to take your color over the edge, please do. I'm not ever going to tell you not to do that. So I need a little bit more black, I think. And I'm going to touch just a corner into that white, just to kind of give myself a little bit of a gray. Do it again. So let me see. Let me just get this color on, and then we'll futz with it a little bit. All right, now I need a little bit more. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of, my brush is still pretty dirty and got a lot of black in it. So I'm just going to put some white on and kind of blend it in to make a gray. And then I'm going to just hit I'm just kind of pouncing the tips of my brush. Hang on. Just kind of pouncing the tips of my brush. randomly. And adding, you know, that white in kind of gives me a little bit of a gray. So it does make your rock look a little, your stone, your cliff, whatever, look a little more dimensional instead of a flat surface. I probably need a smaller brush, but we're going to try to work with it. A little bit more. I'm just blending that white into that darkness that's on my brush already. So it's kind of looking a little feathery instead of what I want it to look like. But we're not gonna try not to overthink it, because we are gonna add some glass and some rocks and some stone and stuff to this. I'm trying not to overthink it too much, because a lot of it's going to get covered up and then it's just a waste of time. But I do want a little bit. I'm just kind of blending. So here is kind of where, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, if there's any light, daylight, sun reflecting through the clouds, how it would kind of hit the rock. So I'm going to add just a little bit of more lightness to the edge of this, like right in here. So if it was light coming, it would kind of reflect down on that rock. So I'm just going to add just a smidge of lightness till I run out, which I already am almost, to that portion of, and I'm just stippling with the tips of my brush, really. I'm not, it's just kind of pounce, pounce, pounce. All right, we're gonna let that go. I need to stop. I do need to fix that one little mountain right there where I made a little boo-boo. All right, we're gonna let that be. So just kind of futz with it, you know, add more brown if you want, more black. Just kind of futz with it to give it kind of a mottled, monochromatic, stony look. This is kind of where we're at. Don't worry about it too much. We're going to add a lot of stuff to there. So we're going to let that dry. And when that is dry, we'll come back and I will I will transfer our design onto our canvas and we'll start working on that lighthouse. So I'm pretty excited about that. So we'll see you when this is dry.